Hi, I'm Cheryl Medeiros.
And I'm Colleen Hungerford, and this is the Inspire Her Collective podcast and community for the whole woman, mind, body, soul, and business.
It's humor infused, as real as it gets, inspiring, and you'll walk away with real, usable tools for life and business.
If you love what you're hearing, please share with a friend, subscribe so you never miss an episode, and rate and review wherever you listen.
And if you find yourself wanting more inspiration and authenticity, visit our website to learn how to join our nationwide community. Let's dig in. Inspire Heard. Hello, welcome everybody.
We have a
Yeah, this
first,
is going
huh,
to be
Cheryl?
very
We have a
relatable to our
first time.
listeners, but the elementary school gives us about 5 minutes morning when our kid's going to get an award. And both of my kids got an award this morning. And here I am in my car.
Recording live
From the
from the
car,
car. I
stealing
love
the
it so
porch's
much.
internet. Thank you, Nikki Rocco and Trevor, for the internet outside your restaurant. Appreciate it so much. So I hope my lighting's good.
Yeah, it is one of those. Yeah, it's one of those days, right? Because we're recording now and it's May and it's summer, or at least my kids are out from school. I just had to take the boys to my 2 hour long office sales
Oh,
meeting.
fun.
And that was an
Hmm.
adventure. And they did really great. They did really great. They brought their books and they brought my Jackson brought his army men, his little army figures, and he lined them up all over this conference table. But I think, as women who are now both in their
Yeah,
40s,
I'm
Cheryl,
42. 40
we
also,
have
not
a.
42.
I was like, when did you
No,
turn
I'm
42?
also 40.
I glitched. I literally glitched for a second because I was like, what just
Hmm.
happened? Okay, sorry. So we've got a great guest that's going to be very, very relatable, very important to where we are in our life right now.
All
So
right, we
take it
have
away,
Dana Culp
Cheryl.
here. Dana is the founder of Thrive Midlife Medicine, a virtual medical practice focused on evidence-based care for women navigating perimenopause and menopause. She's a doctor of nursing practice, nurse practitioner, and a certified menopause expert with over 25 years of clinical experience. Dana is passionate about helping women reclaim their energy, clarity, and confidence through midlife care and education. Dana, you have found your
My
target
God, thank God you're
audience.
here.
Hello, good morning.
You're like
I'm
our
having a hot
goddess.
flash right now. Let me take my vest off. Talk to me.
Oh my gosh, Dana, we're so, so excited to have you here. I know, and thank you for making time for us today. So we're going to just jump right in with our a billion questions. But the first question that we always ask everybody is, what's your like 2 second bio? But tell us who you really are. Tell us all about yourself. We want to know as much as you want to tell us.
Okay. Well, the 2 second bio. I am a proud mother of two adult children. That's my highest priority is family. I've been in the medical field for over 25 years and started, well, a million years ago, but started with the basics, critical care, and then family medicine, and then some of the higher levels of leadership in hospital systems, and then transitioned through my own experience into women's health, and then prioritizing midlife women's health, which is an area that doesn't get the attention and the training and the focus that it really needs. So I've been doing that now for several years. Been the greatest joy of my career, helping women in midlife re-envision what this stage of life can look like. We don't have to kind of slowly fade off into irrelevancy and deterioration. This can be such a time of joy and passion and reinvention, and I help women achieve that and find that in themselves every single day, and I just love it.
Oh my God, we love it. And something that I've started to hear more recently, and you are, is like certified in like menopause, perimenopause. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that certification means or is, or making sure I'm getting that
Yes.
verbiage right? Because that's something that I think is important. Because from what I understand, in like traditional medical school or traditional nursing school, like there's not a huge section on menopause
I'm
for
so glad you
women.
asked that. And I think it's such an important question right now because this conversation is so big, and many folks have a lot of opinions and very big voices and can position themselves as experts. But what does that mean?
Mm.
Yes, so
Yeah.
there's several, I'd say, certifying bodies that folks who want to seek out this additional training can go to, pass some very rigorous tests, take some rigorous courses, and then come out the other side of that as certified. There's several of those that are really good across the country as well as across the world. But to speak to your point, yes, there is so little training in this area of a woman's life, whether it is medical school or nursing school, like you said, a nurse practitioner, PA, all of those different types of providers. We know that even OBGYNs, who we think of as those are the ones who take care of women, right? Only 1 in 5 medical programs even have any training at all of this stage of life. You know, the big focus is the reproductive years, and then when your parts are going wrong, like cancer and things. But then once you're post reproductive or going through this chaotic hormone phase, they just haven't been trained, and that doesn't mean they're not amazing providers and love women, but they just haven't been trained. We are working on that. There's some prominent physicians who are really working on trying to get that into the medical school training, but that's a long ways off. So, to get back to what you said, the vast majority of folks do not have training in this. Another survey was, I think,
Mm.
93% of OBGYNs in a survey stated they do not feel prepared to take care of women in this stage of life. Yeah, it's just shocking. So yes,
God.
even with myself, I did family medicine for and women's health for at least a decade, taking care of women in this demographic with the training that I had, thinking I was doing a great job until it happened to me. And I realized I couldn't get good care. And then it made me look at what I knew and what I was trained in, that caused me to seek out the training, which you can find. And there's some amazing providers who have done that, but you cannot assume that when you are sitting even in front of your trusted, beloved primary or your trusted, beloved OBGYN. Sometimes they don't even know what they don't know.
That's wild because if you really think about it, if you're thinking about like reproductive years, you're thinking maybe like on a broad scale, maybe 10, maybe, girls are getting their period now a little bit earlier, so maybe they're like 10, but then like maybe you're, like having babies until you're 40 in your 40s. Like that's 30 years out of somebody's entire lifespan of like medicine that's just not like I'm 43 and I have 3 kids. I'm not going to reproduce anymore, right? Like I think I could, but I'm not going to. So like who takes care of me now? Right? Like I don't. And it was interesting is when I was having, my oldest is 12. So when I was starting to have kids and having kids, I started to see a shift between OBGYNs and then like GYNs coming off saying like they didn't want to do OB anymore because it was like really risky or a lot of insurance issues and things like that. But it's interesting now to think like there should be GYNs who are just doing what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like there should be people who are now just specializing in this because obstetrics is its own specialization. So, oh my God, we're so glad you're here. And thank you so much for doing what you're
Can you
doing.
start? Oh,
Because
yes,
as
thank you. Can you start with the basics? Like, okay, so perimenopause and menopause. Like, when do you? I know perimenopause because I'm welcoming it into my world. But like, how long is that? And then, what does it actually mean to be in menopause? Like, what are the basics of this? Because we don't teach our women
or
how
like
our
when does
bodies work.
perimenopause, yeah.
Yes, yes.
And when does perimenopause start and how do we know, like we joke all the time, like it's clearly perimenopause, but like, is it? Like, how do we know what those signs and symptoms
Sure,
are?
sure. So I think most of us have heard the term menopause, but I don't know if everybody knows what that means. So menopause, the definition of menopause is to go 12 consecutive months without a menstrual period. At the end of 12 months,
Mm.
you now are in menopause, and that's a retrospective diagnosis. So you actually went into menopause 12 months prior. So okay, so that is menopause. We are no longer, our ovaries have gone out of business, and we no longer are going to have a cycle. So
And that's just from
perimenopause,
there till dead. Is that
um,
menopause? Like,
you
how
are
long does that
now
last?
Yeah, menopause is
Always.
1 day. Menopause is 1 day. That is the,
Oh,
again, you've gone 12 months
oh,
without a menstrual cycle. So go back 12 months. That day was menopause. Your very last period was menopause. So again, it's retrospective because you can go 6 months without a period and then have another one and you're not in menopause yet. So you are in menopause for a day and then you're forever postmenopausal. And so those are those terms. And then perimenopause, which I think is a newer term for a lot of us, and like, what does that even mean? So
mhm.
perimenopause is the period of time before menopause. Peri means around, and we do know from the literature that perimenopause can last, and very typically can last about 10 years, give or take. So if 80% of women go through menopause between the age of 45 and 55, which the actual average in the United States is 51. But 80% of us will have our last menstrual cycle during that age span. So, doing the math backwards, that could be a 35-year-old woman who is starting to have, or younger. I actually have several patients who are 29, 30, 31, at where when the hormones start becoming chaotic and the ovaries are not functioning the same way. So perimenopause can be actually a lot more challenging, in my opinion and my experience, than actual menopause because there's so much chaos and there's so many things that chaos kind of impact from our brain, our metabolic function, pain, thinking, moods, and just so many things. And it's
You're
due to the
speaking to me.
chaos of hormones. Yeah. Yeah.
I hope if anybody's listening and they want to watch it on YouTube, my eyes are like as big as quarters. Like everything you're saying, I'm like, what the hell? Like, could you like 29 years old? Like that's
Yeah. That's definitely on the younger
wild.
side. But again, doing that math, 10 years.
But 35
To,
is
to me, it is.
wild
To me, it is. It
too.
seems exceedingly young, but now we know better that maybe that woman
Yeah.
is experiencing hormonal chaos. It definitely needs to be on the differential. Historically, what we've done for a 35-year-old, a 38-year-old, a 40-year-old who comes in, I can't sleep, I can't control my moods, I have anxiety that has come out of nowhere. I've never felt this way before. I'm gaining weight, just all of these things. And we give them a sleeping pill and we give them a mood stabilizer and maybe
Yep.
some anxiety medicine. And nobody looks, upstream, or at least they didn't, we do now, looks upstream to see like what is the genesis of, or could it possibly be the genesis? And that's a simple fix.
And I think one of the tricky things as a woman, case study, like you also have amidst all of this, like you're also navigating sometimes raising children, and you're in an age where they're like either they need lots of care during that time. Most of us who are listening are balancing careers or building businesses or are executives. So like it's hard to, I think for me, it's hard to differentiate like, is this a medical problem? Is this a physical medical problem? Or is this just stress from work, stress from being a mom, stress from trying to do everything? And I think, you talk about like increased anxiety. Like I have noticed that significantly over the last probably year to year and a half. And my assumption, because my assumption is always, well, it's just work. Like I'm just stressed out. The moods and things like now are things that I've never had before. And I'm just kind of like, oh, this is not. Like this can't just be dress. So I think that that is a challenge for women and probably a challenge for you. I would assume a lot of women probably come to you much later than when it all started, right? Like you have a funky day, you're not like, oh, I bet my hormones are whacked out. You're just like, oh, I just had a bad day. So like what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do?
Well, you are so correct that we don't always know exactly what's going on. A lot of us have very complicated lives, very busy careers and children and partners, maybe, and social life and community, responsibilities, and our lives get very, very busy. And is it just I have a complicated life? But that's why conversations like this are so important, because I think our
Mhm.
society culturally, trains us, especially as women, if I just do more, if I just try harder, maybe I'm just not trying hard enough. It's obviously my fault. I need to manage my stress and move more and eat less and just all of these things. And we internalize that. And because we are most of us are just really high functioning, women. So having these conversations is so important. And you said it so perfectly. I alluded to, I don't feel like myself. Like this isn't me.
Yeah.
And that is the little
Yeah.
phrase that I hear more than anything. And we all know when something is just like, gosh, this is just not me. And one thing to think about too, when you're looking at yourself, hopefully from that 10,000-foot view of who you really are and how things are changing for you, our hormones really protect us in so many ways. But the word that I love to use is
Mm.
resiliency. They protect our resiliency. When
Mm.
before we start having this chaos, we can juggle those balls and we can do it all. And then at some point, it's like, I can't seem to juggle the balls anymore. Or I can't, I'm snapping at my partner or my kids, or just whatever that looks like for you. And I love for people to keep that word in their head as resiliency, because I think that then turns things outward, where we don't feel like something is deficient in us. And again, this is why these conversations are so important. But I also want to give the caveat: hormones aren't the cause for everything, and they are not the cure for everything. So sometimes maybe we do have
Sure.
too full of a plate, or we need to prioritize our sleep, or something, or there can be chemical things going on. But really looking at hormones, it absolutely has to be on the differential if you have certain patterns that are emerging, as well as certain symptoms that are just classic of hormonal chaos.
What have you seen to be like the most stealth perimenopause symptom? Like, what is it that people are like, I'm living with this thing that's just crushing me, and I don't realize that it's perimenopause and I should be looking at my hormones?
Gosh, that is such a great question. Every woman is individual, but I think that there is definitely a theme: anxiety, that uh, agitation, anxiety, and it's new, or it's
Mm.
more pronounced. Like you used to be able to keep it under the wraps and manage it, but anxiety, I think, is one of the biggest ones, and that can manifest in a lot of different ways. But so that would be the highest. The first thing that is stealth, that is not as obvious. Sleep is probably the next thing, and that's a little more
Mm.
challenging because, yes, our sleep is foundational. And am I just not getting enough sleep? Am I too stressed? There's a lot of things to think about with that. And then weight gain. The weight gain that
Mm.
I haven't changed anything. I'm doing all the same stuff. I might even be trying harder, and I cannot move the needle, or I'm just gaining, and the body composition is changing. There's many other things that are actually, some of them are actually kind of funny. But those are the three biggest ones I see that usually drive a woman into my office. And the anxiety one I like to call out first, because often before they see me, they have seen their primary, they have seen mental health or behavioral health or psychiatry who's tried to give them, medications for depression, anxiety, because sometimes those things can conflate, and they just don't want to take that stuff, or think I've been depressed, in my life, and this is not the same thing. So they've seen multiple providers before they see me, and so I find that more impactful because of so many problems can be added to their plate when they end up in the wrong place on all these medications that aren't part of the root cause.
You're literally describing me. I see my GYN, I see my primary. I have had like a severe uptick in just kind of irritability the week before my cycle should start. And my husband and my primary are trying to get me to double my antidepressant. And I'm like, I'm fucking telling you, it's the week before my period. It is not all of the time. It very clearly is cyclical. Like, can we please just stop trying to push more medication on me? Like, I've accepted medication. I get it. It has a place in my life, but like I don't need to double it because a week out of the month I'm severely irritated and agitated. Like, stop chewing so loud and um like just
And
do the right things.
and
Just
how
do
I
dare
everything.
you
mean, it
breathe
is,
like
and this
that?
one,
Be
yeah,
like,
Oh,
why
that's
are
so
you
funny.
breathing? Like, stop
Yes.
yeah.
breathing in my house. This is ridiculous. Don't put that on the kitchen counter. Like, it's not an antidepressant
And I
problem.
don't know there. Yeah, and I think I would love to see a study. This is my, I would love to see a study on the correlation between like perimenopause symptoms entering the chat and divorce.
Ooh,
Because
that's a big one.
I, there are days where, and I love my husband. We've been married for a long ass time. Great, blah, blah, blah. Those are all the things. There are days where I'm like, I can't. that's it. I guess we're done. I'm going to divorce you. Like, you're just the worst. And I might as well just do it all by my, like, and never in my life have I felt that, right? But like, there are things to you're saying, like the chewing or whatever, where you're just like, I don't know that I can live with this human being for another minute. And, like I've lived with this human being for 20 years and it's been fine, you know? So I think not that it's like the root cause of divorce, but I bet there's a huge percentage of this happening during perimenopause because at some point you're like, I can't take this shit anymore. I don't have any help. I feel nuts, or my husband thinks I'm nuts, or X, Y, and Z, right? But it is really
Such an
intense.
important topic. And I know we're kind of laughing about, how dare you breathe so loud and all those things. But
Yeah.
yes, I don't know of a study, but I really wish there would be one. I think that it really impacts midlife divorces a lot more than we would ever give it credit for. And of course, how do you know? Because this is so
Yeah.
complicated. But if you think about,
Right.
okay, so
Right.
think about the woman who's constantly, like you're describing yourself, like during certain days of the month, and then how that makes him feel. He now feels criticized and
Hmm.
rejected, and then intimacy starts to change. Whether it's because you're annoying the heck out of me, or because we start to have some physical sexual changes, and so it can devolve so quickly. And I think about this a
Hmm.
lot because I see almost exclusively women and so many divorces, and then they start on hormones and they or not there's lots we could talk about all the different options, and then they start to feel like themselves again, and if that could have been remedied further upstream, I think a lot of marriages
Hmm.
could be saved. And I even have my own personal experience like what you're describing, that I just thought I can't do this another day, and I'm sure my behaviors were horrible. So, we're not talking about the man's
Right.
perspective, but and then it was like the lights came back on, and I thought, oh, you're not really that bad after all.
Well, I'm like, not to always air the
Yeah.
Medeiros' dirty laundry, but when we started with our new marriage therapist, like last year, she's like, in 6 months, like, if this changed, what would it define as a success for you? And Alex was like, well, just the week before her period, if she could just get control of her mood. And I'm like, okay, the shit that you're doing all the time. I just don't have a filter the week before my period. Your shit's bugging me all the time. But it's just like, yeah, if we weren't in there doing I'm like, yeah, I just no longer have tolerance for bullshit that week. And I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm not choosing to feel this way. I don't want to feel like this. I don't want to not be sleeping. I don't want to be not desiring sex or all the things. Like, I'm not choosing any of this. And I don't need more medication. I need to understand what's going on, and we need to get to the root cause. So maybe at this point we can go into what are some of the solutions that you're
Yeah.
prescribing. Obviously, she's not prescribing any of us. See your own doctor. You could possibly get on her patient roster, but like,
Hey,
what are
Dana.
some of
Yeah.
the solutions?
Oh, there's lots of solutions. So there is, first of all, every woman needs to decide for herself. That is first and foremost. My goal, and in all of everything I do, is not that every woman is on hormones. My goal is for every woman to understand her body, how it works, understand what is happening to her, and then understand what the options are, because I think it's a very personal decision.
Hmm.
So my overall goal, biggest highest priority, is education, so women can make informed decisions, whatever they decide to do. So that's the first thing I want to say. With that said, there are hormonal approaches. We all in this space that are up on the current literature, bioidentical is kind of the gold standard, bioidentical hormone replacement, which just means, the bioidentical word is kind of a marketing term, and it just means the molecules your body recognizes as their own. So they behave differently in the body than the old things we used to use a long time ago of synthetics. So there's hormone replacement, and that is
Okay.
not one thing. That is a lot of things, different routes, different doses, different combinations. So we could speak to that week before the period, and exactly like how that would be managed. That is manageable. So there's the hormone piece, which not only helps us get through these symptoms and feel like ourselves again in the moment, in the day, the week, the year. I just need to function and feel like myself again. Our hormones also protect our long term health. We have so much literature that talks
Mm.
about the long-term health benefits of maintaining our hormones past our ovarian function. And the probably the most researched areas are our bone health. For instance, estrogen is FDA approved for the prevention of osteoporosis. Cardiovascular health, which will get, I think, 1 in 3 of us, which is more than all of the cancers combined, which is cancer, breast cancers. Which, by the way, I'm not making light of that, but that's all we think about with women, and that's way down the list of
Right.
what is likely going to doom us. So, bone health, brain health, cardiovascular health. So those are probably the biggest studied, but there's a lot more things. Then there are non-hormonal options that can help with symptom relief. They're not going to do anything about the long-term health, but they can help get through today. Hot flashes, changes in sexual function, mood, things like that. So that's a non-hormonal pharmaceutical approach. They're undeniably important is the foundational pieces of diet and lifestyle. Whatever you decide to do, that, in my opinion, is non-negotiable. We need to eat really well. We need to move our bodies. We need to sleep. Have great relationships and community. That is another piece. And there's lots of options, and every woman needs to decide for herself what she wants to do with her own body.
Diet and lifestyle. Is there, we're hearing so much about protein and wear the weighted vest when you walk and strength training. Are those kind of the gold standard of like what we need at this phase of our lives?
Those are really important. I think there's a lot of conversations out there that get things really complicated. And I think it's funny that you mentioned the weighted vest.
Hmm.
We're all supposed to be wearing a weighted vest now, and that is fine. But it doesn't have to get that complicated, and we don't need to spend a lot of money. In this stage of life, we know that muscle is starting to deteriorate. We don't build it the same way. We don't hold on to it the same way. So I think the reason that that whole protein conversation is so big is because of that piece of the puzzle. Not about weight management as much, but it's about maintaining our muscle mass, which will speak to our independence and mobility as we get older and our bone strength and things like that. So when we were younger, at least I think a theme a lot of us can relate to, the goal was to just be as small as possible. Be as small as possible, as
Yeah.
long as possible, however you're going to do that. And a lot of us, high volume food with low calorie density and just whatever we did, cardio like crazy. And that approach doesn't work as well as we get into this stage of life for lots of reasons. But the biggest is because our metabolic system isn't working the same way. We're losing muscle, and muscle is our metabolism. So that's why the protein piece is really more impactful now than it even was before, to be able to maintain that muscle mass as well as maybe gain a little bit, lift heavy. And that's what that conversation is about. But I still think, cardio, we shouldn't be cardio queens anymore, but sometimes it's the best shrink in the world and it's not going to hurt you. So protein does have a different place at this stage of life as far as prioritizing, but there's a lot of approaches. We have very healthy vegetarians and vegans and lots of
Hmm.
ways to get to the top of that mountain.
What I There's a couple things I'm thinking about. One is that, like, to your point, like, we're not educated about this at all, but we're inundated with information, right? Like, we're constantly inundated with, I mean, the weighted vest thing cracks me up. And this is my tangent about weighted vests. Great. I don't know. I'm sure they're great. But I thought we were supposed to like lose the weight so it was better on our joints, but now we're adding more weight to our body. And I'm like, I can't, like, again, it's a situation of like conflicting data constantly that we're getting told. But I would love for you to like to give us, what are just like some tips. I know you probably can't, I know everybody's different. I know, like, I things I hear a lot, and maybe we can do like a fact or fiction situation, like walking versus high intensity is okay. Let's do this. I'm making this up right now. Okay. Should we walk or do hit workouts in our perimenopause situation, or does it matter?
Okay, so
Walking
these
versus
are
hit.
really nuanced questions, and it depends on your goal, and it depends on your health status, and it depends on how you're feeling. So if I have a 300-pound woman, a 250-pound woman who hasn't moved in a decade, I'm going to tell her to go walk. And if I have somebody who's maybe
Yeah.
a little closer to ideal health, there's a, stayed kind of in the narrow range, I'm saying do hit all day long. Because
Really?
sure, because
Okay.
they're closer to being like the highest functioning, and that tells me that they can step it up a notch. And that's not to say that that woman also can't go walking, but I'm not going to tell a woman who physically can't do these things that basically she either do it or don't do it. Back to what our culture does to us. This is all of our fault. So I don't think there's a one
Hmm.
size fits all approach, but I do think if you are really have got a lot of the foundational pieces right, I say do hit. It can be a lot more impactful, but again, it depends on your goal. And if we are looking at our bone health, for instance, that can be more impactful for our bone health than walking, even if we wear a weighted vest. So, yeah, there's not one perfect answer because we're all individual and we're all in a different place in this journey.
Well, I guess that really complicates
Because
these
I
social
was,
media pushes that people are
yeah,
putting out there as the cure-all uh,
Yeah.
for all of our perimenopause symptoms, because we need individualized care. Because
yeah,
what we've always known is like every body is different at every stage.
Agreed, agreed. I think that word
yeah,
individualized, we need to say that all the time. This is not a one size fits all approach. Very individualized. We all have different health histories. Again, we're maybe different. We're in different physical states. Maybe we have different goals. Maybe we're
mm,
experiencing different symptoms. And if somebody tells you this is the only answer, I'm suspect because there's so many great options, and it continues to evolve. We evolve as we feel better and feel better about ourselves, and our bodies are functioning better. Maybe now we have a different solution that we're going to look at. So it depends on where you're at and where you're going, and having somebody who can see you as just an individual person and really fine tune exactly what you need.
I think yes, all of I mean yes, I don't doesn't matter what I think, but what I guess what I was trying to say is like we want as women, and I think in this day and age of consumerism, we want to give me a top five
Mhm.
things I need to be doing. And what I'm hearing you say is that there's no like panacea of like cure all for everyone, right? Like it really is everybody. So like getting in and seeing somebody who's certified in perimenopause and menopause care, like, and figuring out what's good for you. So like walk us through a little bit, like if I came to you as a patient, like what's the like protocol? Like we meet, do we do labs, do we do like what does that look
Okay.
like?
But I'll speak to the first part of what you said because I think that that is so
Yeah.
important. And maybe I wasn't really clear in how I answered you a moment ago. I can get a little. So there
No,
is
you're
a
great.
top five panacea in my opinion. And those are
Oh, great.
foundational
Let's do
pieces.
it.
Okay.
What is it?
So I don't care who you are. I don't care how old you are. Sleep
Okay.
should be your highest priority. And we can burn it at both ends when we're young. We all have stories about that. But as you get older and there's a lot more changes, you need to protect your sleep like it's your job, and really sound
Mm.
restorative sleep. And some people can really do great on 6 hours. Some people need 9 hours, but that is the highest thing in my opinion. The second thing is movement, and it could be Pilates. It could be walking your dog. It could be whatever it is, that thing that gets you moving. And I always think of that as a snowball effect. If we just get some momentum going, we could end up, who knows where we can end up physically, but getting moving every day. Not only is that great for our bodies, it's great for our minds, and it also sends that message to ourselves of how like we matter too, and prioritizing that time even if we don't have time. So moving well. The next thing would be to have really high quality food. And I think that I don't care if it's you eat animals or plants or whatever, but having the highest quality food as close to its normal state as possible should be really really important. And keeping like a calories in control, because that really does matter. That is now where I'm at. I'm on number three. We're at number
We're at
3. Yes.
3. Yep.
The next one would be I would encourage women to if they drink any alcohol as they get older, because we don't metabolize it the same way anymore, to look at their relationship with alcohol. I think that it starts to become
Mm.
more negative than positive as we get older. And I'm not a teetotaler, but I think that we don't appreciate how much it can really impact us, not only like our sleep and our just a lot of things. So reevaluate our relationship with alcohol as we start to age. And the third thing is our connections, our relationships, our tribe. Those 5 things, I don't care what else you do, get those right, and then everything else is a vast, 6, 7, 8. So I do think there's about 5.
Okay, I'm going
Okay,
to pat
so
myself on the back.
there, I love it.
I'm
I love a
so
list.
happy and proud
Love
of
a
me
list.
because my sleep became so difficult. I had a massive reduction in alcohol, almost completely quit last year. I'm focused on walking. I'm focused on my sleep. I've always, not always, but since I was adult, have thought like whole food, full food, as real food as we can get. Like, I'm just so proud of me. Oh, and in community. Obviously, I just love community,
Really good
but yeah,
job.
right. So
Really good
now let's add
job.
some hormones to this bitch so I can
Yeah,
stop my
but
bad
those,
attitude.
but yeah, but I feel like what's cool about that, Dana, is that while those are not necessarily like easy, like some of those things could be challenging, I think those are
Mhm.
doable things,
Yes.
right? Like those are all things that we can, are goals that we can like work towards that are fairly reasonable. Like nobody's gonna be like, oh my God, you want to get 8 hours sleep? You're insane. Like, you can do that. You can try. Like I think it is hard. I think that's something that I'm working through, and I'm seeing a nurse practitioner who does traditional medicine and functional medicine, and we're kind of working through like for me, I'm waking up every morning or in the middle of the night between 1 and 3 o'clock every
Yay.
single night, right? And she's like, yeah, it might be hormones, but what she was saying, she's like, it actually sounds like your cortisol is spiking in the middle of the night, and that's what's happening, or whatever, right? And so we're trying to figure out like what those things are, and I just got my fasting blood work done yesterday, so we're gonna check it all out. But okay, so we've come to you, so we've got our top 5 things that we can be doing. But so set now, if I come to you and I'm like, Dana, okay, I'm going nuts. I want to divorce my husband every other week or one week out of the month, and like I'm tired and I feel nuts, but I know I'm not nuts. Maybe I'm stressed. Like what would somebody expect
Okay,
when
so
working with
what
you?
does it look like? What does the care look like? Very, very individualized. So I need to say that piece first. What we start with is we start with a very comprehensive intake form. That is health history. There's a lot of reproductive history. We all history. It's very, very comprehensive. And then
Yeah.
the first appointment is an hour long, which is unheard of in medicine, for most medicine. But it's an hour long where we already have that foundational piece as far as like the health history, so we can dive right into what are we going to do, and what are our options, and what do we think is going on. So now it's a little more challenging with somebody who is still getting their periods, as far as pinpointing
Mm.
exactly what the kind of the recipe is going to look like if she decides to look at her hormonal piece. I can definitely speak to the diet and lifestyle pieces, or pinpoint one little symptom. But if we want to really look at the overall hormonal health, so it's a little more challenging in perimenopause because it's not depletion, it's chaos. So when you
Yeah,
I don't
sure
believe
is.
in, I'm going to make a lot of people mad by me saying this, but I do not believe in a lot of these tests, all of this testing that is happening out there. These really fancy tests, these really expensive tests, insurance doesn't cover them. I think that we just need to look at the basics. Start with the basics, and that is some basic hormones. I always say, I think I already said this today, hormones are not the cause of everything. They're not the cure of everything. So we look at some other markers. How is your thyroid doing? Other, cardiometabolic markers, because sometimes other things are going on that need to be addressed. So there are some basic labs that I do think are important, but just because your labs are normal does not mean that we don't have lots of choices and ways to optimize how a woman is feeling and how she's functioning. Intake, lots and lots of talking, a lot of education. I think that is the key of what is your specific situation and what are your options. And now let's talk about the risks and the benefits of each one of those. And then you decide with my support. I am not the be all end all. I have my biases, but this is not my body. Looking at a few labs and then lots of really good follow up. If, for instance, let's say a woman did want to do a trial of hormones, and that can look very different depending on what her symptoms are, then likely meeting again in about a month, depending on what her choices were, fine tuning and tweaking until she feels like herself again. A lot of times that can be done in 1 or 2 appointments. Sometimes it takes a little bit more, and as she goes down this journey because the hormones are continuing to change, then that recipe might change a little bit. But it's very individualized, very specialized, and not a one size fits all approach. So here comes a woman to me. She's in her 40s. She has this great life, takes really good care of herself, hates her family for a few days every month. I would encourage that woman, especially if she's still having cycles, whether they're regular or irregular, to start journaling her symptoms. Oftentimes, when you write these things down, the pattern just pops out at you, and you go, okay, this is not my hectic life. This is something else because I see a rhythm. And we both kind of have laughed about, nope, it's exactly these couple of days. That is oftentimes, and this is not medical advice, and see your own provider, but a lot of times that tells me that her progesterone has bottomed out, and I might talk to her about doing a little trial of some targeted progesterone just during those days and then not the rest of the month, and see how much better she can feel. Yeah. So,
That was the exact
the
thing that
example.
happened with
Oh,
me.
really?
Yeah, because I started to notice, I mean, we were in a really high stress time, but I started to notice like once a month I was literally like, I'm going out for cigarettes and I'm not coming back. Like you're all fucking crazy. I'm done. And just one month when it was happening and I was just losing it, crying with my husband, I was like, this happens once a month. This happens once a month. Like, hello. And called my functional doctor who I've seen for years, and she's like, it sounds like progesterone that week might really make a difference. And by goddamn, if progesterone that made the biggest difference. It was like, oh, yes, I still have some symptoms, but they weren't so unbearable. It
Yeah.
like it was much more
Yeah.
typical of like a cycle rather than like literally gonna burn my whole life down once a month.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
progesterone made all the difference.
And it helps with
Helped
your
with my
sleep,
sleep,
correct?
helped with my mood. The thing I didn't realize was that it could also push my period back from starting. So it started to make me irregular. Like it would take longer for my period to start. So I was like, oh, now my period's every 30 days instead of every 28, which maybe that was unique to me or I don't know, but
Oh,
um
interesting.
just like didn't fully understand all that was doing, which again is the education piece of just like truly understanding what we're doing and putting in our bodies and how all the different things it could help with made a world of difference.
I think progesterone's coming for me too. I say that also because very similar symptoms and talking to my nurse practitioner, but also I had to take progesterone for all my pregnancies. So I had low progesterone, like I have low progesterone just as a normal functioning person. So I'm like, cool. Really excited
It was
about.
so easy. It was just
Okay,
a
so
lotion. It
tell
was
us
so
some.
easy. Don't be afraid of it. Yeah, it was
Oh,
so easy.
really?
Dana, what so there's been this conversation in the news about HRT had like this Surgeon's General warning
Mm.
and now it doesn't. Can you talk about what that was and what it means and what the difference is?
Yes, I would love to talk about that. So, that to me was one of the most exciting days in women's health when the FDA announced they were going to be removing that black box warning. That black box warning changed a lot of things for women about 25 years ago.
Mm.
So, just for people who don't know what a black box warning is, that is the FDA's highest alert basically of a dangerous medication that has like the highest concerns. And so they put this warning on it and they call it a black box, which is really just relegated to the worst of the worst medications that can have really significant impacts, damaging negative impacts on us. So what had happened in the early 2000s, there was a very big study, a women's health study called the WHI. And I'll just kind of make this very short. At the time, it was really exciting because we haven't really studied women. What we've done over time is we study men and we study animals and we extrapolate that to women because we're too complicated and it's too dangerous to study us. So it was really exciting that they were going to look at hormonal health related to cardiovascular health. And so what they did was they used a group of women that were much older than the typical demographic that we look at right now to use hormones in. So they took very limited data with a different demographic and they overgeneralized a concern that they started seeing of, we think this might actually be causing cancer. So that went out publicly. The media took hold of it. They backtracked it pretty fast. But what's that saying? The bell was already ringing. The cows were out of the barn, whatever that saying is. And practically overnight, we went from about 40% of women using hormone replacement therapy to down to like 4% or 3% or something like that. Providers stopped prescribing it. Women were scared to death that they were all going to die of breast cancer. And so that is where that fear is. And I don't want to dismiss it because that fear is out there. And I even had it myself for a long time. But we do know now there was medications that we either don't use or understand now what those medications were doing. For instance, just as one example that doesn't get talked about, is they had a couple of different sets of women. One set used an estrogen product, which most of us don't use anymore. It was conjugated equine estrogen, which comes from the urine of horses. And if they only use that, I know your eyes got really big. When women just used that, they actually noticed a decrease in breast cancer, regardless of the women's ages. And then when they looked at the subset of women who used that along with a synthetic progestin, because we're talking about progesterone, a progestin, then they saw an increase. And so they, instead of saying, we think it's this progestin, which again, I hope nobody is prescribing anymore, but I actually got prescribed it when I started going through this, which was horrifying to find out. So my point is I don't want to make this too complicated, but they took these findings and like just generalized everything as, hormones are going to kill you. So there's been just countless studies now across the world, very good studies that talk about how protective our hormones are, especially the way we currently practice bioidentical, different routes, whether it's oral or transdermal. So we have a lot of work to do. The black box has been removed, which has made a big, it has really elevated this conversation. And so again, back to the original prompt question was, it was one of the most exciting days in women's health because now we hopefully are starting to speak to those fears and those misunderstandings and myths.
My God. Okay. Well, Dean,
I was going to say back to
go
your
ahead,
fact or
Joe.
fiction conversation that we had. That hormone replacement therapy is going to kill us. Fiction, or fiction. You can go ahead, Colleen. I know the next question you're going to ask because we need to honor Dana's time and all her patients that are waiting for help.
Yes. Yes. We would love to have you come back and talk about this for like, I don't know, always. But we want to be respectful of your time because we know how in demand you are. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them?
So my practice is completely virtual. It's a telemedicine practice, and I'm on the West Coast, California and Nevada currently, and we are quickly expanding to the 11 Western states. The website is thrivemidlifemed.com. That is such a great. I didn't build it, so I'm not bragging. It's such a great website. It has so much.
You can brag.
I didn't do it, but it's a great website. It's got so many great things on it. My team is amazing. It also has on it a perimenopause quiz, which I just love that, and I'm so proud of it. Again, I didn't create it. I mean, I informed it, but the team is amazing. And that perimenopause quiz, really, if somebody's just really confused about all the information out there and how they're feeling and what is, what is impacting what, that perimenopause quiz can just maybe point you in the right direction. So the website is a great place to start. If I am not in an area, because you have to practice in the states you're licensed in, I regularly have women reach out to me that are in other parts of the country and say, I can't see you, but do you know anybody? I have an amazing network of colleagues across the country, like-minded, like-trained. We meet once a month and we talk about tough cases and we share resources. And so I have really great recommendations for anybody that would like that. And then the last thing I'll say is there's a lot of really great education that can be found. I know I do a lot of speaking, and there's a lot of links on my website for like different amazing podcasts, as well as like webinars and live teachings that I've done. So that is a really great place to start.
Thank you so much. This is such an important conversation, and I think we're so thankful to you for coming on the show, but also just for the work that you're doing. I think that's like so important. I think the next my not from you, but from somebody is like to create a course for the men
Yes. Those poor guys.
because this,
I do feel for my husband.
yeah,
I don't feel as
like
bad for him as I do for me, but
yeah,
I feel for him.
Yeah.
correct. But I think to be, it's like there are like, there are birthing coaches for dads and there's like birthing information for dads, but like there's not out there. I saw one guy on TikTok who it's a perimenopause guy talking husbands, but that needs to also, I mean, I think that would, in my opinion, which is based on nothing, save a lot of marriages.
All
Agreed.
right,
So
I think that's wonderful.
I'm throwing that out into the universe.
I think that's
Dana,
wonderful.
again, thank you so much. And we will put all the information in the show notes about how people can get in touch with you and Inspire Her Collective. Thanks for being here, guys. We'll see you next week.
That's a wrap. Thank you for joining us on this journey of laughter, life, and growth. Please remember to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you found value in today's conversation, we'd be thrilled if you would leave us a review on your favorite platform. Your feedback means the world to us.
And don't forget to share this podcast with your friends, family, and anyone who could use a good laugh and some practical insight into navigating the challenges and triumphs of our minds, body, soul, and business. And remember, you're not alone on this path to success. We're right here with you every step of the way.
Remember, we're doing this right.
Right?